live. Connecting. I think we might be live. Here we are. What's up and welcome back, everybody. Today is a very new type of stream for me, and we've done this before on other channels, but it's new here on The Nightly Nerd. We are not playing Hogwarts Legacy. We're going to be talking Hogwarts Legacy with a very special guest who I will let him introduce himself to you. So take it away.
Hi, I'm LastMarauder. I currently create content for Wizarding World as a whole, but obviously recently it's just been a lot of Hogwarts Legacy. I have a new channel starting up very soon, which is called More Marauder, which is going to branch out a bit more around other franchises, but solely so far we've just been Wizarding World, and I'm really looking forward to this. It should be fun.
Awesome. I think it'll be a good conversation after you and I talked a little bit on Podcast Now's channel, but we've got some picking up where we left off to do. We have about 10 questions to get through, and we'll take as much time as we need. But if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Obviously, super chats will kind of jump to the front of the line. They're not necessary, but if you guys want to do that, feel free to do it. The first question we'll start off with is, where are you at in Hogwarts Legacy? Where are you at with the level? How many playthroughs have you done? Have you gotten the platinum? If you're playing there, I think you're playing on PC, aren't you?
Both, but yeah, I'm playing on both. Yeah, so I've got it on my initial playthrough was PlayStation, but I'm useless with a controller now. I have to go into sort of PC playing. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I just can't do anything that involves aiming on a controller. So I wanted to get onto the PC, but obviously because of the launch issues and all that sort of stuff, I was doing a 24-hour live stream. I had to do it on PlayStation straight away. So my first initial playthrough was on the PlayStation. I've completed the main storyline. I still haven't done some of the side quests, like Sebastian's story. I don't know how that ends. But yeah, played it through all on that, and then I've started my second playthrough on the PC, which is where I'm planning to do everything, fully complete it, platinum, 100% it. And I'm also practicing a lot to try and do sort of no death runs and that sort of thing as well. So I'm looking at doing no death runs and probably amp it up a little bit and do no heal runs. I think that'd be quite fun.
Yeah, so I am I just got the platinum at the end of last week. I was going to stream my last couple playthroughs, but seeing the cutscenes other than the whole like map chamber room missions, the Jack Dawes missions, I kind of just wanted to skip through the cutscenes, and on stream it's kind of looking odd when you're just skipping through cutscenes. So
doing the same.
I skipped a couple, and I just think it's a good spot to be at. My first playthrough, my original playthrough, has I think 60 to 70 hours, and then the other playthroughs, if you skip cutscenes, are probably about 2 to 5 hours, depending on how much you actually like expand the world. With that, you said you had 2-3 playthroughs. Which houses were they?
So my main playthrough, my initial one was Ravenclaw. I'm now the one I'm going through. I started streaming on Twitch, the main one I'm going through, and that was on Gryffindor. And I started doing one, which is I was going to do like a stylized sort of YouTube playthrough, not live, but like episodic videos. That was Hufflepuff, but I've literally only just got to like Hogsmeade on that. But the only one I haven't done is Slytherin yet.
So you've played the Azkaban mission?
I haven't yet. I've only just got to, like I said, I've literally just got my wand. I've done the first day. So I would imagine that probably be my next episode. It's early on, isn't it? It's one of the, it's the same episode. Like the mission is the is it Jack Daw mission? Is it that one?
Jack Dawes. Yeah, it's the pages. Obviously, welcome to everybody in chat. We see Order Division here, who is a fellow Hogwarts Legacy content creator, and our normals, Ben and Gerard, and all the folks that come along. There are a couple questions in chat. We'll get to those in a bit. A couple of them line up with my questions that I have for him here. So we'll get back to these in a little bit. But yes, LastMarauder did answer. He can see the chat.
Can't see it. I have seen the Azkaban mission. I've seen it play out. So I watched. I think it's Ben Snow did like a breakdown of.
I'm a little bit disappointed in it, to be honest.
Yeah, I just want to go there to take photos of it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I just want to go there and take some photos of Azkaban because I love doing that at the moment.
It was a little bit more disappointing than I thought it would be, just because it was short. And all those Jack Dawes missions, I think the Gryffindor one with Nearly Headless Nick was the longest. And
it's been my favorite.
Was my original. Yeah. honestly,
Yeah,
other than the fact it was Azkaban, the Nearly Headless Nick one was my favorite.
yeah, yeah. It's been my favorite so
Um,
far.
a question for you here: the best and worst part of Hogwarts Legacy to you so far?
Okay, so best is combat by an absolute mile. It's just fantastic. There is so much to think about. I love explaining it to people. I love trying to like just show how in depth the combat is, and when you explain it, you genuinely realize how much there is to think about because you've got, you know, you've got to figure out whether you're going to dodge or block. You're going to figure out if you're going
Mhm.
to like use what color spell you've got to use to do attacks on which person to break their shields. You've also then got to think about certain enemies. So I did a tier list. Is my latest video that I've recorded, which should be coming out soon of the spells. So like
Okay.
each individual spell, like certain enemies are weak to each individual spells, and if you do it at a certain time, it'll weaken an enemy, and there's just so much to it. The combat is just absolutely fantastic. I think for me, the worst part, it's really difficult to me because I am one of the people that genuinely just absolutely loves this game.
Mhm.
Um, I was a little bit disappointed with the room requirements.
Yes.
I I would prefer that. And there's just specific spells and stuff like that from the room requirements that just have no use after a little while. Like the beast spells, like where you comb them and feed them. Like as soon as you got a feeder, like that one spell is just completely obsolete. And I don't know. It's just some of the mechanics they've put into that are good mechanics. They just don't work with the other mechanics they've got in the game as well. So I was a little bit. I was really thinking I was going to enjoy the room of requirements, but other than, I think I use it a lot in my playthroughs when I'm doing like no death runs and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. But because obviously you got to level up your equipment and also make as much like potions and plants as you can. But yeah, I just think they could have done more with it.
I think, Retro Raconteur had a really good, like, quality of life update video if you guys have or haven't seen that. He said in there, even the rumor requirements to your point, like, if you just did when you walked through those doors, it pulled up so you didn't have to use your spell diamonds to slot those spells.
Yeah,
It should have just been a different interface when you're
yeah,
in there because 'cause you're not using spells, so that
100%.
that would have been a huge quality of
Yeah,
life update, I totally agree.
massive.
Um, I think I'm gonna second that for you. Besides, people who watch my channel a little bit more know that I've been disappointed just at the mere replayability of the game. I thought it was gonna be a little bit higher,
Yeah.
than it is, but the Room of Requirements is literally made for a person like me who likes base building, stuff like that, and
Mhm,
it's been a bit disappointing to say the least. I think there's nothing to do in there. Like, there's no
yeah,
reason to actually kit it out the
mhm,
way the game wants you to.
yeah,
My favorite part though, exploration. I think that leads to the basis of why the game is so good. It's just the world and the environment and the exploration. And
yes.
I truly love this game, and I think you and I could go on and on and on and on about what's good and the exploration, the world, and the lore. And I mean, you guys see behind me, there's a little Dementor, and there's books and Dobby and all this stuff. I'm a huge nerd and buff, and I think they did it so perfectly. It's
Perfect.
unbelievable.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Really, it really was. Like everything was the little moments in it that just make it so true to the original source material are just great, and just bringing things to life that you haven't seen, like the kitchen and the way that
Mhm.
they're in there, they're cooking away, and you've got the ones that are like stomping down on whatever they're stomping down. Like it's just so good and so Hogwarts. It's just
Tickling the
great.
pear.
Tickling the bear, yeah.
It's funny because if you're not in Gryffindor, you don't get that mission, or you don't get to go in the kitchen. You have to experience that for yourself
Oh yeah,
because
yeah. I
that's
didn't even
part
think of
of
that
the
as a
Nearly
Gryffindor
Headless
mission. Yeah,
Nick.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was
So people can go in there, but you don't really know to, tickle the pear when you
yeah.
walk by. Um, so off Retro's video, kind of a good question is, what's your biggest quality of life update that you would want for the game?
So I mean that was a great shout. I haven't seen that video, but that was a great shout. If you just have specific
Mhm.
spells for specific things, um, the one massive one for me would just be to be able to preset a look.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah,
irrelevant of
yeah.
what you put, like whatever like abilities or clothing you put on, just preset a look, so I don't have to every time I have to put on those stupid dragon glasses. I don't have
Mhm.
to then go in and take them off. That would be one massive thing for me because it just takes so much of my time up. And also, if there was like a quick sell button, so like sell all or like
Mhm.
select sell, that would be a really nice thing as well. Yeah.
That gear one's super important to me as well because I would change my gear every time I got, like, a 1-point upgrade,
Yep. So
and it actually ended up getting to a point where I didn't because I didn't wanna go through and change what I looked like.
yeah.
Um,
I would also
but I
on PC like a button just specifically for
mm,
like the plants. I know you can't really necessarily do this on like PlayStation as much, but like on PC you've got so many buttons to choose from. Just let me have a button that just drops venomous tentacular, and let me have another button that's mapped to drop in a cabbage. Like don't make me have to go into the spell wheel on PC because that's why PC is made.
yeah, I don't know how is it controlled on PC?
So I've got mine. So my spell, like my wheel, is mapped to tab. So I literally just have to hold tab and then select it, which one I want.
Mm,
So it's literally the same as the PlayStation. You've got a button mapped to open in that wheel, and then you have to select it. And then if you want to quick use it, you just
because I
tap,
haven't played
whatever you want.
PC at all,
Yeah, yeah.
and I honestly don't think I'm gonna go back. I think the next time I'll go back, and this could be a question for you as well, is Switch. I think I'll go back to Switch, and we'll touch on the Switch a little bit later when we're talking
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
delay, but I think that's the next time I'm gonna really jump back in. I thought I was gonna jump back in PlayStation 4, um, but I'm not sure I wanna play a whole 80 hours again of a game,
Hmm.
and I'll explain why in a bit, but yeah, I think the Switch will be the next time I jump in. When do you think you're gonna hop back in after you complete this one?
I'm gonna constantly be playing. I think I'll constantly be playing just because I want to do, like I said, the no death run. I want to try
Mm,
and like enter like a higher level gameplay because I've never really done that on any games outside of FIFA. Played at like a high level, so like I want to, yeah, do something decent with that. But I think Switch definitely I want to play it. I don't know if I will. I might sort of drop in to do some like comparison videos of the
mhm.
PS4 versus the PS5 versus the PC. Like it's sort of just walk around the same area and just do those sorts of things. But I won't necessarily play the full game for on PlayStation 4.
So a good
Yeah.
segue is quality of life and stuff like that. But if Luke Stevens, I know he's controversial or whatever you want to consider him. He's got very opinionated views of games in general, which is good to have skeptical views of games. He broke down the statistics. Somebody posted them on Reddit of the statistics of how much the attacks are, how fast the brooms are, and it looked like the highest upgrade for the broom speed was like the limit in which you could go in the game, and then they just reduced it from there. I
Mhm.
So with that being said, when you're going at that sort of pace with the broom speed, I wish the broom controlled just a little bit more, a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah.
But the segue here is what DLC do you want most? Because for me, I don't want DLC Quidditch.
No.
I would like more appearance options and more stuff like that, more brooms, more reasons to kind of jump back in that world, maybe gear, stuff like that. That would be a cool DLC that could be cheap. What about you?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm completely with you. DLC Quidditch, the flight in Hogwarts Legacy is not developed for a Quidditch
Mhm.
game.
Right.
I have no idea how they would manipulate that flight to be plausible to play a game. It would have to be completely made from the ground up. So it'd have to control completely differently to the flying outside of the game.
Yeah.
And it unless it's like a massive DLC and they've got like a massive team working on it, then I want a specific team dedicated to that. It needs to have a whole team dedicated to have the right elements to it. For me, I think DLC I would like expansion areas. So I would like a
Mhm.
Forbidden Forest expansion, which could then introduce some more beasts and some more um, sort of potion ingredients, that sort of stuff. So you have different potions, which would then obviously impact the whole of the game.
Right.
Because when you're playing through for the second time with that DLC bought, then you will have these potions from the beginning. So there'll be different ways of playing different scenarios from earlier on in the games. You could also have more mounts and that sort of stuff. I'd also like an underwater. Um, DLC. I think that'd be really cool because you've already got established locations and creatures for underwater. So the mer people, the giant squid, all that sort of stuff. So there's places that you could visit, and there'd be a reason for you to go down there, and you've got a mechanic to let you go down there with gillyweed or bubblehead charms. You've got these things that you could use, which would then just be more things for you to look out for. Again, there'd be more like ingredients and that sort of stuff, just to enhance the gameplay if you're playing for it again. And yeah, I think if you just add DLC with a few more spells and a few more ingredients, it doesn't even need to be like a full spell wheel necessarily. Even if they did like one spell per DLC and did 4 DLCs, and then you would have
Right.
an extra spell diamond. It just adds that different playthrough for when you play it again for the first time. If you've got all those DLCs, you've then got those spells from the beginning potentially. So yeah, every mission would be different again because of the way you're approaching it.
So you say spell DLC. How many spells do you think they can add without like having you come back too far in a sequel? And do you think they're going to do a
Yeah, I
sequel?
suppose. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could potentially, like I said, I think if you did one spell, 4 DLCs, one spell over 3 years. I'm not saying like these are quick DLCs. Like, take your
Right.
time, make them good. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be, you know, a a long like a short process of just putting out a DLC every 6 months and then we just get an extra spell. If you do it over like 3 years, add a decent sized DLC that adds, I don't know, one potion, one potion, one spell, or one plant and one spell per DLC, then all you'd have is one extra spell diamond. And then you're right with the sequel. They'd have to be very careful with the sequel if they did a sequel, because you can't unlearn spells, I suppose.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I'm sure there's ways they could do it. I don't like it when they do stuff like that, when you get like depowered personally, but I suppose there is ways where they could, potentially do that, and you sort of unlearn spells or forget spells or something on those sort of lines, or I don't know. But yeah, it would be difficult, and that's the trouble they're going to have moving this game forward, is because you're then going to have potentially 32 spells in the next game, for it to be the same level of customization and all that sort of stuff, or the same level of learning in the next game. So yeah, it'd be difficult to balance, but I'd like to see a few more spells just to make these gameplay these run throughs different.
So are we getting a sequel, and when?
Yes, 100% we're getting a sequel.
Okay.
Just I just cannot see Warner Brothers turn around and going, "Oh, that was great, good job, thanks." Eh,
Yeah.
the amount of money they've made from it, Warner Brothers, I guarantee they've already been in there and said, "Right, people start working on the sequel now. They're already writing a story." I guarantee it.
Right.
Yeah, and realistically, I reckon 3 or 4 years. Um, it depends how much they obviously Warner Brothers want to inject into Avalanche and all that sort of stuff. Because if they're going to put money into Avalanche, then Avalanche could expand their team, and because they're gonna need to do something to keep this game alive between now and then, just to add some stuff to this game. So there will be a DLC, I would imagine. But
You think
yeah,
it's going to be direct sequel, or you think it's going to be a different time?
um, the easiest thing for them to do would be a different time, because
Mm.
then you wouldn't have the issue of having to learn spells like or forget spells or whatever like that. But I see this as a story that's not quite finished,
Yeah.
because I mean, you have only done 1 year. You've learned a lot about these characters, but there's still a lot of stuff that you haven't learned. And I feel like they could actually tell a bigger story than this. Like, I want to know more about Ranrock. He was still moving. I want to know more about my character. Why am I at, Hogwarts late? So there is more story to tell. But I realistically, the easiest thing for them to do would probably be to do a different time frame.
Or I think the easiest thing that they could do is just do 6 and 7 years, like year 6, year 7, just because to make it about the same size with just minimal upgrades, if that makes any sense. Because, I mean, you even look at games like Spider-Man 1 and then Miles Morales, where a lot of people thought Miles Morales was a DLC because you could literally play the story in like 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think it would be a bigger experience for year 6 than that, but like you're saying, I don't think the story's finished, and for those of you who haven't finished it, there's a good choice at the end. Well, good is subjective, but there's a choice at the end, and if they make a sequel for this game, I think it would put you into a category where you had to choose a canon ending, whether you're good or bad. Which one of those do you think would be the canon ending if they did make a year 6?
The easiest one would be the bad, I think, for storytelling purposes,
Right.
because otherwise you're going to have the same story. It's going
Mhm.
to be the same. It's there. I'm trying to say this without doing too many spoilers. It's there. Somebody's trying to get to it. Whereas if you do the bad one, it's out. So it's out, and then you have the repercussions of it being out and how
Okay.
that's going to affect things. And then, yeah, and also I think I said this in the podcast now one, like with the bad ending that I played, one of the characters was very ambiguous what happened to them in
Right.
Fig. So
Right.
that could be more to play through for that as well. So I think that would be the easiest one, and that would be the one I'd like to see. That would be the one I'm most interested in seeing the story for, because with that being released, then it could infect different people. It could, there's a few people that could actually access that power now, whereas
Right.
before it was only Ramrock and his loyalists.
I think if I watched a little bit of Alex's video today, over on Podcast Now with his wife's review.
Hmm.
Um, she brought up the fact that she's not sure if Ranrock is dead.
Mm,
So, minor spoilers. I mean, you guys, I bet you could guess the main bad guy was gonna die.
mm,
Um, but that's a good question too. Along with, I mean, I'll throw it out there: Fig potentially being dead.
hmm.
Do you think both of them are actually gone?
I see. I didn't notice it the first time I played it through, but when someone mentioned it before about him moving at the end, he was definitely moving at the end, and they just didn't mention what happened. There was
Right.
definitely movement for Rambo. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I've only seen one of the endings in regards to Fig. But in my
Yeah.
ending, my initial first thing I said straight away is he's not dead, because we didn't see
Really.
him. We saw him disappear, and then we didn't see him. Everything was released. So in my head, I was just like, he's not dead. He's down there, and he's absorbing that magic.
He's gonna come back even stronger.
Yeah, and I thought he potentially would become bad in the next one.
So, before I ask you this next question, I think it needs a preface.
Hmm.
You and I are both big fans of the Wizarding World. You and I are both fans of Hogwarts Legacy. I think the marketing for Hogwarts Legacy has been better than probably any game I've ever covered or seen in my 30 years of living, other than potentially Cyberpunk.
Fortnite.
Well, Fortnite actually didn't market well at the beginning. They were actually a game for almost a year before, because they were the save the world.
Yeah, Save the World. Yeah, I bought it
And
day one.
and Destiny 1. Destiny 1 marketed
Yeah.
better than like any game. There have been some odd decisions. There have been some bumps along the road. There has been the whole debacle with the whole pre-order, and then it didn't get released exactly when it was supposed to be released. But those are minor things when you like come in the grand scheme of things. This whole delay situation, and this is the question. What are your thoughts on the delay? Because I've got a lot to say about it, but I'll let you kind of get what you
Mhm.
need out first, and then we can kind of talk about it here. But what are your thoughts on it?
So I I think their main issue was trying to do it on previous last gen in general. Um,
Yes.
I think if they had just stuck to the top of the range systems, there would be no need for them to scale everything back that they're having to do now, and then still make the game decent.
Right.
Um, and then obviously Switch would have its own build anyway, because Switch normally does, but I think even Switch is going to be more scaled back than the PS4 still, because I still just don't see the Switch as a decent machine that's man enough to play a lot of big games.
No.
So I think even that's going to be harder for them to make. But I think their main issue was trying to do it on too many platforms. I understand them wanting to make as much money as possible and spread it as much money as possible. Um,
100%.
but yeah, personally, I think that was their main issue, and I saw it come. I didn't think when they announced it, I didn't think it was going to be released then. I still think there might even be more of a delay now for all three.
Really?
Yeah, I just after playing the game and just seeing how visually stunning it is, and
Mhm.
even like my PC is I've got 32 gigabytes RAM, I've got 30 80, I think I got graphics card. Like sometimes playing that in a high tense situation. I mean, I've got the graphics ultra and all that sort of stuff, but it sounds like my PC is about to take off sometimes. It really does. And like even scaling it back is going to be such a massive task to make that game good, because the problem they're going to have now is a lot of people have got their eyes on this as well. So if they're going to turn around and say, you know, when the PlayStation comes out, oh, we've had delays, and then they're going to play it and it just runs so bad, then there's going to be a backlash about it as well. And I don't know. I feel like they're in a bit of a lose-lose situation personally.
So if you had to guess, when would it be coming out for next gen, legitimately, or last gen technically?
So it's got pushed back to May now, hasn't it?
May 5th, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could, but I think there might even be backlash if they get it out in May. But I think realistically, you're probably looking. I reckon September 1st would be a good day for them to release it.
September 5th.
First is in going back to Hogwarts.
Okay, back to Hogwarts Day. Okay,
yeah.
The only problem with that is Starfield being on the 6th.
Yeah,
but I mean, you never know. This question was asked.
They're not going to be playing Starfield on that console, are
they? Is it releasing on last gen?
I don't know.
I don't remember. We could get somebody in the chat if you could fact check what console Starfield's coming out on. This question here,
next gen.
Yeah, it might be. Well, it's just Xbox, either way. But this question was asked right at the beginning, and I said I would come back to it. But will it actually come out for PS4? With all the delays, I'm starting to lose hope. I'm expecting a cancellation announcement or another delay.
I don't think they'll cancel it. They're not going to cancel it. They've already made steps towards it, so I don't think they'll cancel it. But I can see another delay. I can see another delay. They're going to have to do some drastic remodeling, I think, even just to make it run well enough on an old gen.
Yeah. So here are my thoughts, and this might be a little long-winded here, so strap in. I was recording a video immediately when the news dropped, and I was like, this video is going to come across the wrong way. I am not going to put this video out. That was kind of my decision. I think it's a bad look. I got a lot of heat initially when they delayed it just for last gen, and I thought it should have just been delayed for both, and you just live with the consequences, or you just kind of cancel it. Because sure, take as much time as you need to build the game and get it out right, but like you're saying, this game is huge. Like, it's absolutely massive, and the more you play it, the harder it is to get over the fact of Fallout 4 didn't run very well on PS4, and it's not even close to as big as this game. It's not. Bethesda has always struggled visually. Hogwarts Legacy does not struggle visually. So when you're talking about Fallout 4 not running well, not being good visually, I don't know how this game is actually going to run. I'm leaning more towards there will be another delay. And if it's not, they're going to catch a lot of heat for the fact that it's not as smooth as it is. Because one of the issues with Cyberpunk was that when the game was being like pushed out, it was all PS5 footage. To date, I don't think we've seen any PS4 footage. They have some sort of marketing exclusivity with PS5, PS4, whatever they want to say, but there might have been like a 3-second clip on Twitter that was PS4 with the little controller looking different than the PS5. If that, we're going super in the weeds with that, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game got canceled, especially looking at how Gotham Knights did it. They just straight up canceled it. I think they would catch even more heat if they release it, though, and it's bad. So my issue with the date now, and this is where we kind of come full circle with this second delay. The date is between two massive games within a week of two absolutely like potential generational games in Jedi Survivor on the 28th of February. And then May 5th is PlayStation 4 Hogwarts Legacy. And then the 12th is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So you're between two games that are juggernauts.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you say, okay, push it back to September, you're dealing with Spider-Man. You're dealing potentially, we don't know a date for that. New Starfield date of September 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, when is really a good time? And if you're asking me that, like sitting down and really asking me that, the beginning of July or the end of July, because that's the dead period for games. So I think they just need to push it back into the summer where there's nothing that releases and just call it quits. Like, just don't try to keep whatever. Because if that game comes out on PS4 and is bad, it's not going to be good news. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like how it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you know, I had another thought when you're saying it as well, which kind of makes sense in that sort of mind frame. Is if you think about the people who have got like new generation consoles, it's people that can afford new generation consoles,
Mm-hmm.
or the people that don't necessarily have the new generation consoles are either people that can't afford them, or potentially like kids whose parents haven't bought them like the new console, or whatever. So if you release it in the summer, it would actually be a really good time to release it because the kids are off school, and you know, a larger area of the market that you're aiming for is probably going to be playing it quite regularly, so you can actually get quite
Right.
a few sales and that sort of stuff. So I think what you're saying there would make sense for them to sell it around that sort of time. They're just going to have to get to a point at one point where they're just going to have to bite the bullet and just go, right, we're releasing the game. It is what it is. This is how it runs on the old consoles. If you don't like it, go buy PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to have to. And the problem is I think it's the fans and the players have actually got to have some realistic expectations as well, because this game is developed and it's massive, and us people that are playing it now on the PC and the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox, like we're saying how good it is and how big it is and how the exploration is one of the biggest things. And actually, if you haven't bought the latest console, like I wouldn't expect to be using a Nokia 3210 and being able to watch TikToks on it. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have
Mm-hmm.
realistic expectations of, I've got an older generation console, it's not going to run as well. And I think there's got to be realistic expectations from people there, and I don't think that a lot of people do have that. So at the end of the day, if it's not going to run as smoothly, that's because you haven't got the latest software, or the latest hardware.
100% agree with you, and that leads us to kind of Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch is kind of a joke in my opinion.
It's
I
great.
say
Well,
that.
Nintendo Switch is fantastic for what it does.
Listen, I will give you my history with Nintendo Switch, kind of answer this and then open the floor to you. My history with Nintendo Switch is I was a Nintendo boy through and through. I
Mhm.
had Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, and then I got to a point where a lot of my friends had PlayStation 2s. I sold my GameCube, bought a PlayStation 2, and then I've been PlayStation pretty much ever since. I now have all the consoles, PC. I have 2 Switches. This sounds like a soft flex, but trust me, it's not. I got the Switch on release date. I was in college. I got a OG Switch downstairs hooked up to my PC or to my TV. And then when the Switch Lite came out, I was like, I play more handheld than anything. This will probably be for me. So now to date, every night almost when I'm going to bed, when my wife's going to bed, I play my Switch Lite. I don't even turn on my other Switch anymore. And I
Mhm.
actually prefer that. Um, but with that being said, I don't know how this game's gonna run. And I know The Witcher 3 runs on the Nintendo Switch, and you can say Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which I've sunk hundreds of hours into at this point.
Wow,
It
that's dedicated.
runs at 10 frames per second. Like,
Yeah.
it runs horribly, but that's a Niantic or whatever, that's a
Yeah,
Pokemon
yeah.
company issue, not necessarily a Switch issue, because Xenoblade Chronicles looks amazing. But when you're looking at the Switch, is this gonna be a native game? Is this gonna be a cloud-based port? What is this gonna be? How's it gonna look? How's it gonna run? What are your thoughts?
Um, I'll start off by saying as well, like I was Nintendo originally. Like
Mhm.
I think I had which is the one that's got like the flip up thing, and you put the thing in, and you pop the, is that NES? Mario
I
Brothers
think so.
3.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
little
had that.
slot, it, like, opens
Yeah,
up.
like it flips
Mhm,
up, and then you put and you pop it down, and you put the
mhm.
little slot down. I had that. Then like Mario Brothers 3, vividly remember it playing it with like my parents. Like you couldn't turn it off because if you turned it off, there was no save feature. Do you know what I mean? Like you just had to leave it on all the time. So like I've been Nintendo for a very long time, and I think Nintendo Switch, what it does, is fantastic.
Yeah.
But
Oh, amazing.
they need they need to stop demanding these big games to come onto Nintendo Switch because they just won't run as well. They really won't run on. It's a glorified Game Boy. It's just not. Do you know what I mean? It's not. And also, just the controllers just don't feel good. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's. I can't imagine how awful it would feel to do the combat on a Nintendo Switch controller. I just think it would be awful, especially if you're playing it hand
Mhm.
like it would just feel so bad. The triggers aren't big enough. Like the sticks are just weird. Like yeah, I just think it would just feel awful. Um, I think. I mean, it's going to have to be. I mean, it's supposed to be, portable, isn't it? So it's going to have to be on a disc. It's going to have to be like, you know, playable without having it connected because that's one of the main things that Switch advertise, isn't it? So it's going to have a disc that runs most of the game. Whether it runs better when you're at home plugged in would be another. I would imagine it probably would because they could then add
Yeah.
those elements to it. But there's going to have to be a version of the game that just literally runs while you're sat in the back of your mate's car.
I think
Uh,
that yeah, that's
yeah.
that's kinda the issue with some of these, like, cloud-based ports, is
Hmm.
the whole point of the Switch is to be able to take it anywhere,
Yeah.
but when you have to have online connectivity, the online connectivity isn't good enough to connect your like, when you're out in the world.
Yep.
Um, Roxy here says something funny with this $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Hogwarts Legacy on Switch loading simulator with
Yeah.
Genshin graphics. 100% correct. Yeah, the I think what the Switch does well is just be the Nintendo console because if
Hmm.
you're a Nintendo fanboy, you're playing your Mario games, you're playing your Zeldas, you're playing the games that aren't necessarily graphic intensive, and you don't care. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
they're about the games, they're about the IPs, it's about the titles. So bringing over, you know, Call of Duty or bringing over these bigger games that are cloud based, it doesn't really make much sense. And I just don't know. There's never been a system that I've owned that hums louder than my PlayStation 4. I would not be surprised if my Switch took off. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, just started flying away when it loaded Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah, I just don't know how they're gonna. It's just not gonna run well, and like to the point that they might even have to actually put physical loading screens into it.
Mhm.
Like if you're leaving Hogwarts and you get to like the outside gated area, like it would have to load the. I just don't know how they did it. Yeah, it's
Do you
crazy to me. I think Nintendo needs to step up and make a decent console, but then also keep. Like, I think that would be the best thing Nintendo could do is make a proper console alongside the Switch.
I think, that might be a reason for the delay, honestly. Like, it might be because they have to figure out a way to get you out into the world because there are loading screens, but it's usually when you fast travel.
Mhm.
And I wish I might have video somewhere of it, but there have been times where I've fast traveled to a hamlet and I get to a house in the hamlet and I'm huge. Have you ever seen that before? Like I'm so big, I take up the whole house and then I can't move, and I have to open up the map and re-fast travel to a location to get back to normal size. I'm gonna have to comb through my footage because I know that's happened to me before, and it's happened to me multiple times. So if it's happening on PlayStation 5, what is it gonna look like on
It's crazy.
Switch?
Even on my PC, I've had a few elements where I've like fast traveled in, and then people just like slide in to where they're
Yeah.
supposed to be, just
Mhm.
not walking, just sliding across the screen to where they're supposed to be, and they just sort of appear. It's
Yeah,
quite funny.
everyone's asking what I'm talking about. I will try to have to find it, and I'll maybe throw it up as a short and just because it's been wild. But with that, there was a huge patch. I don't know if you
Yeah,
read the
yeah,
patch notes at
I
all,
did. Yeah,
but it doesn't really look like much. It was a lot of words to not really add much to the game, and I know a lot of people are saying it looks great or it's amazing or XYZ, and I'm glad they're patching the game and mostly stability, but I I don't really think they added much. I think this was essentially their day 1 patch. Like,
yeah, definitely.
this was essentially covering up, a lot of the issues they had with the trophies and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I know I had an issue with the last trophy I got, but what do you think about the patch?
I mean, it's making the game run better. I was terrified because I loaded the game up twice, and it didn't start for me today. And I was like, oh my god, what is going on?
Mhm.
And I thought the patch had destroyed it, but then I realized my graphics was out of date and I needed to redo that. So panic over. But yeah, I mean, it's all stability. These sort of updates are what are expected at this point after it's been out for a month or so. It's been out of a month. They are doing a really good job. We've obviously mentioned how good the you know advertising for the game was, and
Yep.
that road it took, but they're actually still doing such a really good job. And like a lot of the tweets I see Chandler and that putting out at the moment are like tweets like, what do you want us to do, what do you need us to do
Yeah.
to improve it, let us know. And they're listening to people and they're taking those notes on, and then they're going and fixing them. And it's
100%.
showing that they want this game to have, you know, a decent stability, a decent, you know, moving forward, they still want this game to be good. And I think that's why I'm so adamant there's going to be like some sort of DLC, because they want this game to keep being good and keep getting better.
I definitely agree, and I think Chandler is the perfect person for this job. And I don't know Chandler. I haven't talked to him. I don't know him, whatever, personally or whatever you want to say.
Mhm,
It's just from what he's shown, he fits that crew very well that's making the game, and he's in the community asking questions, talking about the game. What do
mhm,
we want? What do we see? Commenting on people's posts, and he's taking that right back to the community, the development team, and they're saying,
mhm,
"Hey, this is what we need to do. This is how we get this better." We see a lot of people like I've tweeted at them like, "Hey, this trophy is effed. I
mhm.
can't get my
Yeah.
trophy. What do I do?" Like, and they'll be like, "Hey, this is what you got to do." Like WB has responded to me, so
Mhm.
I think it's perfect. And I think he's done a really good job with that, and they
Fantastic.
just need to continue
Yeah.
really like answering our questions. But this, I want to transition into renewing our conversation that we had on Alex Podcast Now's channel. You and I disagreed pretty heavily on this, and I'll kind of preface it. So, Hogwarts Legacy has sold 12 million copies in 2 weeks. Now, we don't have an updated number for almost what, just past a month.
Yeah.
I would say probably somewhere about
Oh,
15,
yeah.
maybe, and maybe another 3 million in the last 2 weeks, maybe even more.
Mhm,
It's hard to sell 20 million copies of a game.
mhm,
Elden Ring was the closest to it, and they just passed 20 million after a year. There's not a long list of games that sell that well.
no.
So Hogwarts Legacy is obviously doing something right. But my statements to you are Hogwarts Legacy as a game isn't as good if you take away the Wizarding World. What do you think?
So this was towards the end, wasn't it? And
Mhm.
well, I think we ran out of time to discuss this, but
Right, right.
like the Wizarding World, right? So the Wizarding World sells this game. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, the Wizarding World is a reason why a lot of people bought this game. And then there are people that are only buying this game because they're fans of the Wizarding World. They're not gamers in the slightest. But then there are also gamers who are not fans of the Wizarding World who have bought this game because the game looks so good. So
100%.
by saying the Wizarding World sells this game, I think is doing it a disservice, because I think the game itself is so good that it's drawing people in who aren't fans of that as well. And there's not many games that would necessarily do that. If you say, for instance, wasn't a fan of Spider-Man and you looked at Spider-Man games, I don't think you'd want to play it if you wasn't a fan of Spider-Man, if that makes sense, because
True.
you're doing the Spider-Man thing. Whereas this has got such good elements of other RPG games, and a storyline that looks like it's going to be like a really decent storyline, that it's dragging in people. Like one of my best friends isn't a fan of the Wizarding World. I think he said he's watched 4 of the movies and that's about it. But he's literally got this game and he messages me regularly saying how good the game is, because he absolutely loves the game, and it's because of how good they've made the game.
Mm,
But at the same time, because there was like 2 questions that sort of based around this, and the Wizarding World itself is just an absolute force,
right.
and anything that is released within the Wizarding World will do well. So yes, I agree with you, but I also think it's doing a game just disjustice to say that it's the only reason why it's doing so well is because of the Wizarding World elements. Because I genuinely think if you had the same mechanics and the same game and the same story as such without having Hogwarts, I still think this game would have been given traction. I still think it wouldn't have the same traction that it's got because of the Wizarding World, but I still think it could have been up there with the Elden Rings. And I think when people started playing the game, and were saying like how good the combat is and all that sort of stuff, I think then, people would have sort of bought onto it, and it wouldn't have sold them out this done over the last 4 weeks. But a year down the line, Elden Ring, it would be up there with the 18, 19, 20, I think, just because of how good the game is itself.
So not like this seems like a very argumentative topic, but we're just kind of bouncing ideas back and forth on this. I just my thoughts on the whole thing, and obviously I was the one that made this statement, but it's the Wizarding World is the like for me, and I use myself as an example because I only know how to live through myself, right? I am such a big like advocate for mental health, and the Wizarding World, the Harry Potter books, all of that stuff was part of the reason and part of the things that helped me with my mental health. And Hogwarts Legacy, I don't necessarily think, not saying that it added to it or took away. I don't think the game is something I'm going to look back and be like, this is a good Wizarding World like expansion. I think it's a good thing that's in the Wizarding World, but I don't think it adds to that and like continues that feeling I had where I was like so engulfed in the books and everything, and it helped me so much like find clarity and all this stuff. It's just like a good part now of the Wizarding World, not anything that's necessarily stacking on top. And that's where like I say if you take away the environment, if you take away Hogwarts, when you look at the game, it feels very old. It feels like a game that was being made 5 years ago, and it was. And I think that that's where we come into the future. And is it going to be the expansion going to be really that good? Is the expansion going to be better? But then again, it's like, will it sell that well? So I just don't think it's that good of a game. Like when you really look at the basis of the game, and you think it would really do that well. Like if this was Spider-Man with these mechanics, it would do the same as Marvel Spider-Man out today.
I think the combat is some of the best combat I've seen in any game. The combat for me honestly really sells this, and the issue we've got is a lot of. So I saw was it Sly, the main story? Yeah, it was Sly. So the main Sly, I don't know if you can find it, but Sly put a comment on this saying the main story wasn't good. There was too many plot holes. But we're saying about how good this game is because of the Wizarding World, but I also think the game pulls itself back because of the Wizarding World. So I think the reason why there's plot holes in there is because they're trying to live up to the Wizarding World known fandom, and they're trying to, and a lot of the elements, like if so we said, so we're focused on the main story, as that's the comment that's up there now. So the main story wasn't good, there's too many plot holes. It's because we're trying to keep this in a timeline that is previous to what we know of the Wizarding World. So there can't be too much happening, because otherwise our characters would already know about it, and we would already know about it if it was world changing events. So that would pull the storyline back, because they can't make like a massive Wizarding World that's going to destroy Hogwarts, because people would know about it. So that's putting the story back. They're also doing elements of this game that are pure fan service to us, which again is holding the game back. So if you had the team that developed the Room of Requirements working on another element of the game that wasn't the Room of Requirements, because it's not the Wizarding World, but the reason why the Room of Requirements in there is fan service to us,
right?
It like they could have done a completely different mechanic for us to get potions or get power-ups if it wasn't the Wizarding World. So yes, the Wizarding World does make this game sell better, but it also holds it back. And I think that if it wasn't a Wizarding World game, then there would be other reasons why this game would be even better, because they wouldn't have to do the fan service of the Room of Requirements, and that whole team that was developing that side of things would then be working on a base building type thing that you yourself said would be like one of your main elements. And imagine if this game was set not in Hogwarts but in a fantasy castle without magic, like without Wizarding World. You've got the same combat mechanics, but then the team that was working on the room of requirements were working on a proper base building element of this game outside, where you could potentially have people coming to attack your base and all that sort of stuff. Like, the Wizarding World part of this game pushed it forward to sell it, but also held it back to develop it.
100%.
So,
and
yeah.
that leads to so I opened up a Q&A in the YouTube chat, and I've gotten a couple questions, and one of them kind of not a question, more of a statement, but still a question from Ben. He said, "Do you think the game would have been better if it was designed for gamers, less focused on the Wizarding World fans?" And I think that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Where I have been like a leading kind of villain, proponent, whatever you want to call me, on the fact of looking at this game just strictly as a video game. It's not great. It's good at best, in my opinion, and other people could say differently or whatever. I've played a lot of effing games in my life. Like, I looked at my list the other day, it was 550 something. And that's just on my PlayStation, not on my Xbox or PC. So it's like that's a lot of games. And not sure, I haven't played all of them through, but I think I think Wife Wants a Wizard said it first in a video. It's this game is gonna be good, but not for everyone. And I think it's because the fan service that they're trying to do. And that's what you're saying here, where for me, Starfield right now looks more appealing because it's more of a base building exploration game. An RPG with that element is what I want. And that's what I wanted in the Wizarding World, where it's I want to be able to live there after. I want to be able to sink hundreds of hours into it. And you can't do that in Hogwarts Legacy. And I think that's been my biggest negative. But I totally agree with you that the Wizarding World, and Ben said it, is kind of the reason why this is being held back just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Roxy with another $2 super chat. Do you agree there are not enough enemies? 7 different types. What do you think?
7 types?
So there's 140 types, but there's variants.
There's a lot more than right. Okay, I get what you mean.
Right. So she's probably
yeah,
saying there's only 7 base
Goblins,
different types, and
coaches,
then there's like
okay, but they've got a lot of variation in them.
Right.
More the wizards and the goblins have got a lot of variation in them. I didn't realize until I started really trying to focus on the no death run style stuff, that I've really trying to research what enemies do what. But there's actually a lot of different enemies, a lot of different. If you really wanted to play this game to the professional level, then you've got to know exactly what all 100 enemies do. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because
100%.
specific spells do specific things against specific enemies, and you've got to really, really understand exactly what's going on there. Variation wise, I think it could have been more, but I also, if they are looking to expand and do DLC or further games, then I think it's a decent amount for the first game. Ask me again in 4 years if they've announced another game. Because if they've announced another game, then I would stick by that comment and say yes, it's enough. If they haven't announced another game or no DLC, then no, they should have probably done more.
What was your most annoying part? Like, most annoying enemy?
I hate dog bugs.
Really?
I hate them. I don't know why. I just hate them. They are really, really
tongue.
powerful. Like, one hit from them, especially in like hard mode, like wipes out most of your. And there's just no fun fighting them. At least if you're fighting a goblin and you like disarm them and then like fling their axe back at them, it feels good. Whereas dug bugs, you're literally just waiting for them to stick the tongue out so you can put them up in the air, and that's about it. And it's just, I just don't like dug bugs. I don't know
why. I hate the Inferi. You gotta always use fire first. Yeah. And then you use that spell on an enemy, and then they pop up, and you're like, now I gotta either slot something else and switch something or go back. And they made me annoyed. Have you seen the rumors of the Harry Potter Lego game?
So today I called this before the game was released. I think I said I will not be surprised if they announce a remake exactly like they've done with the Star Wars saga. Of the Harry Potter Lego, and I saw the rumors today that this is already in development, so I was very excited.
Would you want it? Would you play it? What would you need from it?
I love the Lego games. I want them to remake it like the Star Wars saga one. the Star Wars Saga one, they just rehashed like everything. The gameplay was just better. It felt like a more modern game, not like a dated one. Add the voices. Yeah, great. I'd be completely down for that.
I would need multiplayer, online multiplayer.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
always been my biggest issue
I
with the
was
Lego
yeah.
games
Well,
because it
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah.
You had couch co-op,
Who
now
does couch co-op
everything's
anymore?
online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to see people in real life.
I
That's what
don't see
these are
very
for.
many people. I see my clients, and then other than that, I don't talk to very many people other than my wife. So
Yeah.
I would rather play online games with some people.
And how good would it be for
Uh,
like the group of us to play it? It would be so much fun.
and
Be
and we've
carnage.
talked about that before.
Yeah.
If they added multiplayer ever to Hogwarts Legacy, what would you want to see from that?
They at the moment, I just don't think it would work. They'd have to make like proper dungeons and sort of Destiny-ify it, if you know what I mean. Like make missions
Mm,
that are relevant for multiplayer. Because at the moment the game isn't. I don't see any need for multiplayer in that game they've made at the moment. If they add dungeons and that sort of stuff in the future that you can go and there's a ultra powerful acromantula somewhere that you've got to go and take down, it literally would take 4 of you to do it. But again, the game's not made for it. The game isn't made for it.
right.
When you look at Destiny or any of these games, the Division, where you've got specific roles. You've got your healers, you've got your tanks, you've got your high damage, you've got your one hits. You need that sort of element in the game, and this game just isn't made for it. So if you're going to do it, make a completely separate game. Make a completely separate game.
Yeah, I think it would be easy if there was other elements in the game. Like if you just did you could go on these missions together, that would be okay. But like if there was wizard's chests and other mini games, I
Yeah.
think it would be okay to add not necessarily you can come into my world, but we can start a match of Summoner's Court together. We
Hmm.
can I don't know, play
Race
wizard's
brooms.
chess together, race brooms, yeah, stuff like
Yeah.
that. If there was those elements in
Hmm.
Hogwarts Legacy, I think the multiplayer could work. But you're
Hmm.
100% correct. The state it's in right now, it's not made for
No.
multiplayer, and that's sad. But I mean, you never know that. We'll see how that multiplayer mod works on PC. I don't think it's officially out yet,
No, I don't think
but
it
when
is.
it comes out, we'll see kinda how it works because I still think you're right. It just doesn't really line up with how it is.
Unless they like I said, you just have to fully make new like gameplay mechanics and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just everything would need to change slightly.
Let's see. Hello,
AJ.
lads. I agree with the Doug Boggs. There's tough at first, but you avoid them. Large acromantula. So I like taking the Doug Boggs with their tongue and then slicing it right off. That's
Hmm. Can you do that?
yeah.
Defendo it when
So
it's up in the
if
air.
yeah, if you throw it up
Nice.
in the air, you can slice the tongue.
Amazing.
Nice little super sticker. Thank you, AJ Draws, for that super sticker. See what it looks like when it comes up. Nothing. A
AJ, I
couple.
love your art so much.
AJ kills it with his
It's so
art.
good.
Couple rapid fire questions. You can answer them as long as you want. We kind of touched on a couple of these already. That's why I kind of said that. Would you rather have a good DLC or a sequel?
Both. Initially, I'd rather have a good DLC initially because it's going to be a lot sooner than a sequel.
Right.
Um,
When
and yeah, like I said, just expand an area and just add a spell and a potion
when
and
do
a
you think
plant.
we would get that?
Realistically, a year, I reckon. I
Mm-hmm.
reckon they can develop it within a year, and then they could possibly start marketing it towards the end of this year, and then have it as a year one update.
I've been pretty vocal about this one too. I don't think they can release DLC this year. For two reasons. One, 2023 is loaded, and I think it would
Hmm.
be overshadowed. Two, I don't think you can release it until every version of the game is out.
Hmm.
And then three, I don't think you can release DLC until everyone has every capable mission in the game, and that's not until February 2024 with the Haunted Hogsmeade quest,
Hmm.
which might be the best quest in the game if we're being
It's
100%
fantastic.
honest.
It is
It's
so
awesome.
good. It's up there with the third trial. The third trial was just amazing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The
Oh,
third trial for me, And going back to that mental health thing, the one line talking about, um, there's no like darkness without light, and there's
Hmm.
no light without shadow, or whatever the exact wording is. It goes back to some of the things people have said, and you talk about, you know, one of the quotes that has hit furthest with me is like,
Hmm.
you don't know the violence it took to be this calm.
Hmm.
And I resonate with that a lot. Um, so when you have the dual sides of your personality, or whatever you want to call it, it hits you some type of way that the rest of the game I didn't feel like felt like fleshed out, but that mission was really well done, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it was great. I want to I didn't I don't really talk much about my personal life at all. Like I
Mhm.
haven't even mentioned my like real name to anyone.
Right.
Um, but you were saying about this game doesn't really feel the same as the books. But for me personally, so in since release, which is why I've not put any content out really. I'm really disappointed with
Mhm.
the amount of content I put out, and I've lost subscribers and that sort of stuff. But
Mhm.
since the release of the game, we had a so a member of my wife's family died.
Mhm.
So was dealing with all that. Really close member of the family. Dealing with that, we had the funeral and everything, and then obviously supporting her and her family through all that. Uh, my mum was diagnosed with a really serious illness, so we've been dealing with that. Um, and I've currently got some issues in my eyes, which I've got really bright lights in at the moment. But yeah, we I've had a lot of stuff going on, and I used to work in a job that was incredibly high stress levels, and
Mhm.
I am very good at blocking emotions down and not really, going through them. But I always had gaming as a release, and
Yep.
for me, just even if I'm not doing anything and I'm not playing anything and I'm not doing like missions, but just being able to come in into Hogwarts and just walk around and
Yeah.
take the photos that I've been taking, just experience the world for me has been so good for my mental health. Just to escape from things.
Mhm.
So for me, this has been as good as the books as an escape.
Okay.
Not quite as good. Not quite as good. The original books were just
Yeah.
fantastic, and
Yeah.
the characters like resonated with me a lot more, like Luna and all that sort of stuff. Like those sort of
Right.
characters in the book, I really resonated with, and they supported me. Like I felt like they were my friends, and they supported me when I was reading them as a younger kid and all that sort of stuff. But just the escapism for this game and gaming in general, but specifically this game of a world that I love, has been incredible. And then also being able to like live stream it and talk to people, and just share the love for this game, it's just been really good for me. So I do think there is this element for this game of the mental health, and I think it's just being able to fully visualize the world, the gameplay and all that sort of stuff. You are right, it's not as good as it could be,
Right.
and the storyline and the characters aren't as good as the books, but it's a very different medium that they're being portrayed to you through, so that I don't think they were ever going to be as good as the books, because the books just go into so like you're inside their brain in some of the scenes in the books, you know what I mean, you're actually hearing their thoughts. So
Oh,
in this you're
100%.
not. So but yeah, for me it was just, this just escapism to be in the world for me was almost as good. So I think it is
Um,
there.
First things first, obviously, condolences to you and your family and everything that's
Cheers.
going on. I know family's awesome, but also can suck at the same time.
Yeah.
Things that go on with it and stuff like that. But Gerard asks, where do you post these photos? Which, by the way, if you haven't seen, Last Marauder has kind of become the Hogwarts Legacy photographer. He
Yeah.
has been right on the photo mode. So, what's your handle if you haven't followed him
uh
already?
what is my handle?
I think over on
Is it
Twitter.
just like it's on Twitter? Yeah, it's I don't know
I
if it
think
is
it's
just at
at
last
Last
marauder.
Marauder. I'm pretty
uh
sure.
yeah, it's got a 5 and a am I right to put it in chat? Do you mind?
Yeah, you're good. It might block it, but
Yeah,
you
I only put the at in there. I don't know if it'll let me do it, but I'll try.
can
It's got a 5 and a 3 in there, because that was when I first created my channel. I couldn't get LastMarauder on YouTube, so
Yeah, I had to put an underscore in the middle.
yeah.
Um, but I think you're 100% correct in that aspect, and I know everybody part of the reason why the wizarding world, and this is kind of more wizarding world talk than anything, everybody's story is so different, and I touched on this with Alex's thing, and, eh, my the way I am, and I don't really talk about this side of me on here. Just like yourself, you guys know my first name, and I'm sure you could find my last name if you really looked it up. I don't really care. Um, I grew up very different than a lot of people. I was in the minority due to skin color, which is weird. Saying that as a white middle class male, I was not
Mhm.
always middle class. I was very poor, and I grew up in a predominantly African American community. So I grew up very different than a lot of people. James talking about thestrals and seeing death and stuff like that. That's my experience. I've seen a lot of it, and everybody's experiences have been so different, and that's part of why the wizarding world is so special. And if this is your escape, I it is, and I applaud you for it. And it's just awesome to see that everyone's story is just a little bit different, and everyone's story is like through creators, and that's why you watch different people. That's why you connect with different people, and the more we are allowed to talk about this stuff is different. So it's hard to talk about different aspects of your life and stuff like that. But I applaud everybody who kind of goes through all these things. But obviously, like I said, condolences to you and your family.
Yeah,
Back
thanks.
to
It's all
questions.
good. And sorry for
Yeah,
bringing it down on that for a
no,
moment, but
no,
I
it's
like I said, this the Wizarding World is. I mean, everyone in the chat's here for the same reason. The Wizarding World means something to us, and
yeah,
Hogwarts is our home is one of those those common sayings that everyone says, but it's so true for so many people, and
mhm,
it is just a fantastic world to be part of and just escape to. And yeah, I
yeah,
just wanted to sort of
100%.
celebrate the game as well.
And yeah, it's like you said, no worries. We go down dark paths on this channel here. So if you if you bring it down just a little bit, we go down some dark paths. Question: will any new game will any new game or DLC be old gen, or will it just be new gen?
They shouldn't. That's my answer. They shouldn't. It should
They
just be
shouldn't
new
put it
gen.
on the last gen.
Yeah, don't just kill off last gen now. You've released a game on it. Tough. If you want to play the DLCs, you've got to get a new generation. Sorry, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in the same situation where it's delaying everything because we're waiting for another 6 months before it comes out on the next generation, on the last
Mm,
generation.
mm. Should the devs have made it for PlayStation 5, given the PlayStation 4 was the main console when it started? Did they betray PS4 users by moving to PS5 and not accommodating for PS4 enough, even though it came first? It's a great question.
That is a great question. You The problem is you've got to move with the time. You have got to move with the times, and I think they obviously wanted to make the best game possible, and the only way of making the best game possible was to develop it for the latest hardware possible. So, uh, yeah, I can understand the frustration of the original PlayStation 4 players, and that was what it was originally announced for, and all that sort of stuff. But it's the game. If they developed the game for the PS4, the game would not be what it is today.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I think like we've said, it kind of looked like it was made for last gen. And it was.
mhm.
So you look at some of the things that go on with it, it's not necessarily the best looking, but still I'm surprised at how fast they moved it and lifted up the graphics and stuff like that. Still to date, you'll see a game coming out tomorrow that looks worse than Hogwarts Legacy, and Hogwarts Legacy's been in development for 6, 7 years. So
Mhm.
it's definitely a better looking game, but not the best. I think that's Horizon
I
Forbidden
think
West.
I think like the environments look incredible, but when you get to like character models, I think that's when it lets the game down a bit. Every
Mm,
time I try to take a photograph, if there's like I think I released one of the first ones today. There's actually got like a character in other than the dragon, and it was
right.
like the Doug Bog scene. But yeah, it just doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as realistic. Whereas if you take photos of just the environment, it looks ultra realistic. Frozen piss.
So we kind of touched on this during Alex's stream. So this is another just great questions coming in this questions part of the chat. Will Hogwarts Legacy 2 be aimed more towards gamers given the Harry Potter fans will already have a game where they can just explore Hogwarts. What do you think?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
so. I think that would be the way they should develop it. They should improve on the gameplay aspects because focus on making a fantastic game now, not a fantastic Wizarding World game.
You already have the world. Focus on
Mhm.
the gameplay. I think that's 100% what they need to do.
Mhm.
And yeah, 100% agree. Thoughts on comments on Quidditch DLC? I think we both kind of agree on this one, just based on conversations we've had. I don't think they can do Quidditch DLC. I think it needs to be its own game.
I mean, they can do
Yeah,
Quidditch DLC, but it would have to be in development for a few years. Like they'd have to fully make it its own thing, and it would have to literally be a massive, massive expansion, like 20, 30 gig, like completely rejigging. Like you'd have to have like completely separate controls for the broom fight and everything like that compared to what we've already got. So yeah.
yeah. I just think, like you said earlier in this stream, it's just not made. Like the broom fight just isn't made for
Mhm.
the way Hogwarts is, or the way Quidditch is supposed to be made.
Mhm. Just going back to the last question, like
Yeah,
we wouldn't need the room of requirements. Like that could be a whole section of the game they could drop if they wanted to,
I
because
think you've
the
already got
storyline
it
the storyline element of the room of requirements is for us to catch up.
right.
So we're already
Right, so
caught up.
now we're caught up. You could just keep it though as like your home base. They already have the mechanics for it. You might as well
Mhm.
just keep
Yeah,
it.
I
But
suppose.
you're right. They don't need to expand on that aspect of the
Mhm.
game. Less of a question, kind of more of a statement. The map is unnecessarily big. Half the map could have been secret passages inside portraits, bookshelves, trapdoors, secret dungeons, the Black Lake. I agree. I think the map's unnecessarily big for how many villains they put on it and how empty it felt. I know, again, I referenced Luke Stevens. He made a good video about things being close together within what they call like a 15-second rule. You're supposed to grab your attention every 15 seconds in a video game to make you more engaged in the world. And the video is awesome. I think they engage the world well, but I think it feels very empty. The NPCs don't respond, stuff like that. So sure, the world is unnecessarily large, but at the same time, I think the world's large because it feels empty.
I think they made the wrong bits large.
Mm,
I think that's what that is what basically the comment's saying. I think they made the wrong bits large. So this massive expansion like down south, why are you giving me that? I don't care about the coastline of Hogwarts. I care about the Forbidden Forest. Make the Forbidden Forest like 10 times as big. Add more like secret passageways through Hogwarts. I agree. Like they made the wrong bits big is what I would say, rather than they made the map unnecessarily big. It would be good if it was that big, but it
true.
just had more of the things that I liked.
AJ, I think we answered a little bit of this. Do you think multiplayer could work as a separate expansion by making common room hubs and having a dual aspect between players and battle arenas? That's an aspect along with
Yeah.
the wizard's chest and the summoner's court. I think they could add just going in and like getting into a lobby, and then not necessarily the common rooms, but just getting into a screen that's a lobby. Multiple games do that, and then just playing like advanced. Maybe you make the battle arenas 10 levels instead of 5, and you two just go and battle it out. I think that would be awesome. I think that could expand it.
How do they do PvP? You'd have to have
PvP.
different spell, like you'd have to have different Protagos, wouldn't you?
So, uh, I think you couldn't. The only thing is Stupefy would have to ricochet off. It couldn't ricochet at the person. I think that would be, like, the one thing they'd have to change with combat. But if you look at, um, Realm Royale, which not very many people have played. If you've played
Great
Realm
game.
Royale, amazing. But there's,
Yeah.
like bow and hammer combat
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
throwing, where you're one-on-one battle royaling each other in, like, that combat. I think the Stupefy is the only thing you would have to change,
Yeah, yeah.
if you did one-on-one. But a battle royale, Hogwarts Legacy,
That'd be so
holy.
good. Like just Battle Royale would just be great. But like I think they'd have to do it so you like limited to what spells you can pick up. Like
Yeah.
like instead of picking up guns, you pick up spells. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you can like stack one or two or three maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
it'd be so good.
What do
Also,
you guys
just
think?
completely off topic, they need to do a Pokemon one. Pokemon
They need
Battle
to add
Royale would
more
be so
beasts
good.
just in general. They just yeah.
Oh, what, to Hogwarts Legacy? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're talking about you're just talking about Pokemon Hogwarts Legacy
Oh,
version?
no, I was just talking about Pokemon Battle Royale. Just
Oh.
completely separate. Just, I wanna see a Pokemon Battle
You're
Royale.
just a Pokemon? Have
I
you
think, yeah,
played,
you are a Pokemon, yeah. And
have you
then you
played
can, like,
Pokemon Unite?
yeah, and then you, yeah, I've played that. It's good. It's good.
It's
But
good,
like,
it's
I
pretty
think a
good.
battle royale would be really good. Like, you can either get, like, if you pick a decent Pokemon at the start, you can either go through an evolution style thing, or you can search for different Pokemon and then like become them and then go
Mhm.
for the evolutions. I think that'd be a really fun game. But that's really off topic.
Yes. Yes, yes. Hey, it would be fun. What do you guys think about the audio quality? From what I've heard, it sounds like you're in a closed room, that you're having conversations with, even if you're standing outside.
I've not got any complaints about the audio personally. I've had a couple of like weird audio glitches.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm, mm.
but yeah, I've not really had any complaint. The only like big complaint I've got is I wish they recorded a few more audio lines for certain characters, um, like the main character specifically. I wish he had a few more different lines for when he's going into Hogsmeade, and you know, sometimes it feels like every single path leads to Hogsmeade. Like, I
Oh
don't need to
my
hear that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
every time.
uh, yeah, but yeah, I wish they recorded a few, but I've never had any major issues with the sound design, and just sort of on a similar whim to that, the music is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think the music is really good. But to preface that, the voice sync is what's wrong with the game, and that's not necessarily the noise quality or the audio quality. I think the audio quality does sound like you. How do you explain this? The big P word that was 2020, when people would be in separate areas and you'd be recording in different studios.
Mhm.
That's kinda what it sounds like. They
Yeah,
were not in the same room together, and they were, like, a little bit disconnected,
yeah,
but the audio quality is improved on, like, a PS4 game. It's not as good as, like, God of War or Spider-Man or things like that, like the bigger games that come out today.
mhm.
But I think the voice sync where it's your character has no personality, you just kinda walk up and you're like, awesome. Or
Yeah,
you walk up and you're like, Sebastian, I just told Ominous that you're a POS. And he's like, all right, well, let's be best friends. And it's
yeah,
like, well, well that stuff's kind of odd.
yeah,
But other than that, I don't think the audio's that bad.
yeah,
Have you met the
completely agree.
squid in the lake? Yes. He flops this little tentacle up when you're flying by with a broom.
I've been trying so hard to get that animation so I can take a photo of it, and I just have not got that animation to work for me.
And I probably look really funny on cam doing this. um There was another question I saw in here I was gonna throw up. The Forbidden Forest should have been 3 times bigger. I think you've been a leading kind of person on that, just talking about the size of that part of the map.
Mhm.
I think there needs to be more focus on aspects of immersion. I 100% agree with you, V. I think that the immersion side of the game, the lore side of it's really well done. Even to the point where there were things I didn't think were gonna be in the game, like the book of acceptance and the quill of whatever,
Mhm.
um, are in the game, but I don't think it's as immersive as I would have wanted it to be. And that immersion comes with the quips you're saying when you walk past Ignatia Wildheart, or when people are walking by you and they're not saying
Mhm.
anything about you.
Yeah,
Um,
completely agree. Just record more voice lines.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
spend a month with the voice actors and just pay them a wedge and just record some more voice lines and just add them in.
So, question for you, and I've been very um, vocal on this topic also. This game's good, and I don't think it will crack my top 10. I was sitting down actually thinking the other day about my top 10 games of all time. I don't think it can crack my top 10 because even when we think about some games that are purely nostalgia, like for me, you talk about Super Smash Brothers Melee, and I know a lot of people think the 64 version's better. I was more into Melee or Melee, whatever you want to call it, than the 64 version. but that game might be purely nostalgia for me. But at this point, that's that's one of my top 10 games probably of all time. Where does this game rank for you all time? Would you
I
put it in
think
your top 10?
it would be in my top 10. I don't think I played as many games as you, but it would definitely be in my top 10 just for the level of intricacy to the wisdom world that they've put into it. Um, would it be in my top 5? That's the question. I'm trying to think of other games that would be in my top 5. I think it would be scraping top 5. Like it would either
Okay.
be 5 or 6. I would imagine if I'm sort of, because I'm sure I'll think of games like later on that would be in my top 5. And I'm sorry, how have I not thought of them? But for me, like The Last of Us was just an experience. But I've got a few games that are in my top 5 that aren't really necessarily experiences, and I just loved playing them. It Takes Two, I think was just incredibly genius, and just the gameplay elements of that, I think would probably be above it just for how unique the game is. Because I think the downside for me for this game is that there's got the Hogwarts side of it.
Right.
It's not massive. There's not a lot gameplay wise that they've done to it that stands out from other games.
Yeah.
And like The Witcher 3 does a lot of those things better, if that makes sense. So
The Witcher 3 was one of those games that I struggled playing a lot
really,
because
yeah.
I tried to play it, I think it was like 2018 after it had been out for a couple of years, and it
Hmm.
just felt very old.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that love it, I know, just like Red Dead Redemption,
Hmm.
for some reason
I
I
can get into
played
that.
no, I played maybe 10 hours of it and I was like,
Hmm.
I just can't get into this game. I don't know what
Yeah.
it
Same.
is. I know a lot of people love it. I respect it.
Hmm.
Um, but I just can't get into it.
I think the problem with my top 10 is I've got a lot of nostalgia for games. I think if I went back and played them again, I probably wouldn't be in my top 10. But like the original Prince of Persia games, like just when they came out for me were just so good, and I absolutely adored playing them. And I probably would put them above Hogwarts Legacy just for the nostalgia I've got
Mm.
for them. But I think if I actually went back and played them again, then they might not be that high in my rankings anymore. But it's just, I think there's just nostalgia elements for certain games.
Not necessarily in any order, but AJ wants to know, could you name your top 5?
I mean, Last of Us would definitely be there.
Mhm.
Um, one of the Assassin's Creed games, but the older ones would definitely be in there. But I
Assassin's
don't
Creed
know
2?
which, either Assassin's Creed 2 or Black Flag. But
Yep.
I think Black Flag for me probably trumps it just for the extra elements, and I think it's
Yeah.
just because it was obviously later and they just put more into it.
Yep.
But Ezio was a better character, but I
Yeah,
did really love
100%.
Black Flag. Um, yeah, like I said, It Takes Two, I think, is just up there just because of how unique it was. I think for me, and I played it with a friend, and it was just so much fun. Just playing through that together, because there's not really games like that anymore. And for me, it was I just absolutely love that game. This sounds really stupid, but I was one of those people that played Fortnite so much when it came out, and I absolutely adored it. And like now, it would not be in my top 5. But if I think about what Fortnite was when it was like the biggest thing that it was, I think Fortnite was just an incredible experience to I mean, I have spent easily over $1,000 on skins on that game. That's how much I
Yep.
played it. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? It's just crazy. And and like now it would know, like if I'm just talking about the game now, it wouldn't be in my top 10. But if I talk about games that would be in my top 10 from what I've played, then you go back to when it was like everything, the map was changing every week and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that would probably be in my top 10.
There's a new
Um,
season tomorrow,
yeah,
actually.
there is. My mate sent me a message and said, "Do you want to play it again?" So
Yeah.
I might have a go tomorrow. I might have a go tomorrow. But yeah, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird games like that. I mean, the Arkham games, specifically the second one, Arkham City.
I was gonna say Arkham
Yeah,
City. It was Arkham Knight, Arkham Asylum, Arkham
yeah,
City, Arkham
City.
Knight, and
Yeah,
then Arkham Origins, I think.
yeah. But the second one, fantastic. And again, like I said to you, I think just before we started, Spider Man, for me, is the first game that I've ever platinumed, and at the moment, the
Mhm.
only game that I've ever platinumed. So that's got sort of like a special place in my heart as well.
My first platinum ever was an accident, actually. It was Madden 2012. We were playing, me and my one of my stepbrothers, and I got like a pick six, 100-yard pick six, and that was the last trophy we needed. We weren't even going for it, and it popped. But roughly,
Amazing.
I think for me, not really in any order, and I think some of these games might land 6, 7, 8, but just off the top of my head, God of War 2018, The Last of
Yeah,
Us, The Last of Us 1.
yeah. I didn't. I haven't completed two.
It's it
I
will be
I
better.
struggled.
It will be better in 10 years than it is now. I'm telling you
Okay.
that because it's that like the storytelling is that good and the gameplay is that good. It's just not what you were expecting after playing The
Yeah.
Last of Us 1.
I'm
And I
really
know we're
strugg I
getting
really struggled.
yeah,
I got far. I got, like, really far. Um, but I think the next mission that I was playing at was, like, the Rat King mission, like,
yeah.
I got far, do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I just stopped and I just couldn't get back into it.
Um, Destiny kind of as a whole, I have close to 5,000 hours or whatever in Destiny. And between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, no matter what you wanna consider the 2 of them, um, I whether it's in the top 10 or the top 5, Sifu, I don't know who's played Sifu, but Sifu is the one just like It Takes Two that I would throw in the hat that it is such a different game, and it's so challenging. If you wanna get your butt whooped in a game, go play Sifu. You could throw Ragnarok around, you could throw Black Ops, you could throw Super Smash. I don't know, that it's a rough list. I would have to
Yeah.
really sit down and be like, what experiences were the best for me? But my favorite game of all time is God of War 2018, and I can confidently say that.
It was a great game. It really was a
Mhm.
great game. I Yeah, I mean, it would probably be in my top 10. It was a
Yeah.
great game. I've just seen a couple more people in the chat, like Final Fantasy 10 for me was so
Yep.
good, but Final Fantasy 9 as well was. I think 10 is probably my favorite, but 9
10 or
was.
7 are probably my
7 was
favorites.
great, but I didn't have the same love for 7 that everyone else. I think I started a
Right.
little bit later. So 9 had just come out, I think, when I started playing that, and that was the first one I played. So obviously that's got like your nostalgia hits, but then 10 came out and I was like in love with 10. Um, saying about COD, I think World at War for me was my favorite COD game. I absolutely loved that, and that was when like multiplayer first hit really big for me.
Mhm.
Like everyone in my workplace was playing World at War, and it was just like you went to work with them, you went home, and then you went onto COD and you played with everyone at work. It was really
Yeah.
weird. So yeah, that was another one that would hit home.
I think a honorable mention, and I think Alex would be mad at me if I didn't say this. I think the Uncharted franchise, just as a whole, Uncharted 3 for me, though, probably that was the really like the first game I competed in tournaments in multiplayer was Uncharted 3. We were
Gaming confessions.
literally we were pretty good and we played a lot. Like, we
Nice.
played every single day, and that Uncharted for 3 for me, the game as, like, the single player isn't good, but the moment it was in my life where for 2 years I was playing that game religiously every single night,
Yeah,
traveling to go play in tournaments, stuff like that. It
nice,
like, that moment for me in time was one of those things where I look
amazing.
back, I'm like, "Dang, that Uncharted 3 was really like that for me." The game wasn't that good, but it was.
Yeah, my biggest gaming confession is the fact I've never played Uncharted. I cannot
Eh
believe I've never played it because I feel like they'd be right up my street as well. Like I
The
love
games are
like the Assassin's
amazing.
Creed and I love the Tomb Raider games and like I feel like it's a mix of those sorts of things. So I definitely want to play them at some point.
I think
Fallen.
they're very accessible. Yes, Fallen, another Hogwarts Legacy content creator. Imagine Slow Clap, Sifu doing a TMNT game. Oh my gosh. I I'm a TMNT fan, but I was never one of those people who really watched it when I was a kid. Like I've become more of a fan the older I get. Um, yeah, Uncharted 3 was nice. Um,
One
question.
game I want to give an honorable shout out to that would definitely be up there, but it's like completely different, and that's Smite. I absolutely love playing Smite.
Smite's good.
I love a
Smite is
MOBA.
good.
I love a MOBA so much. Have you
Last
seen um it was Paragon. It was like the game that they were working on before Fortnite was called Paragon, and it was a MOBA, and
Mhm.
they've just
Mhm.
released predecessor. So
Yeah.
like Epic Games just opened up, like said, right, here's all this, here's everything. Anyone can make it, and predecessors just come out, and it's a great game. It's a MOBA, but it's like full XY axis shooting, aiming, all that sort of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So really good.
That one new game, multiplayer first person shooter, The Finals actually looks pretty good. I don't
Yeah,
know,
I've
it's
seen
in
it.
closed beta. But we have a question. Have you guys seen the video showing that companions react to side quests, floating candles, even Imelda reacts? Have you seen that?
What was that, sorry?
Have you seen that?
Sorry,
Uh,
I
have
didn't hear the question. Sorry, I apologize. I was reading the chat.
have you guys seen the video showing the companions react to side quests, like floating candles, even Imelda reacts to it? It's a mod.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't
Yeah,
seen this. I
where
See,
yeah.
mods for me are really weird because I've never done any modding. Although I'm a PC player, I've never played any mods at all on a game. I don't even know how they work. I don't know even how I'd get them to work.
Mm.
So I've not really been looking at the mod scene. I think if they release one that I was really into and that sort of thing, I would definitely do it. But I've never ever played a mod and I don't even know how they work. So it's something I'm not really paying attention
Yeah, the mods are weird, and you have to download them and backdoor them and do all this fun stuff with it. So I'm not really that interested in doing it. That's why I would
to.
be if there was a multiplayer mod for Hogwarts Legacy, I would definitely hop on. But I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna do that. Fallen said thoughts on Starfield release date. I think it's gonna get its lunch eaten by Spider-Man 2 if it comes out in the same month. That's all I
Yeah,
have to say about that.
it does look
Um,
good though. It does look really good.
it looks like a perfect game for me.
Yeah.
Space, base building, No Man's Sky is perfect. If you guys have any
Oh, I love No Man's
last
Sky.
kind of questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. If not, we're gonna kind of wrap up. Um, what are your thoughts? Letting them final thoughts on Hogwarts Legacy, anything video game related. Well, they can put questions in if they want. If not, we'll just kind of wrap up.
Final thoughts on Hogwarts Legacy?
Mhm. Are you gonna
Uh,
continue playing it? Are you
Definitely.
like you've said, you're gonna stream it a little bit? What
Mhm.
are you doing? What is your content?
So I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna try and find as many little secrets as I possibly can using the camera mode. One of my
Mhm,
favorite things I found was like the cabinet in the room requirements. I put it on Twitter. And when you
mhm.
use the photo mode, you can obviously go beyond the boundaries of where you should be able to go.
Right.
So I'm looking for little Easter eggs like that. I think I'll cover a lot of those things. Again, like I said, I want to do like no death runs and that sort of stuff. Going forward, moving on to no heal runs if I can get that good at the game. Um, uh, yeah, I'm obviously I'm going to carry on doing it, but I want to obviously expand on the lore and all that sort of stuff as well. But the channel is obviously fully Wizarding World, so that
Mhm.
is any news that comes out about the Wizarding World or the game going forward, I'm going to cover. But as I said at the beginning, a new channel, probably video coming out next week on the new channel, which is going to be sort of covering other franchise and just gaming in general. So I'm not just limiting myself now that the main focus of the channel is sort of gone or passing. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely passing. Where can people find you? I know I have your this channel tagged in the
Mhm.
title and the
Yeah.
description, but as far as hashtags, handles, whatever you kids call them nowadays, where can they
Mhm.
find you?
So yeah, it is at LastMarauder. So all one word. That is my main YouTube. The Twitter one is I think it's like LA5TMARAUD3R. So it's Last Marauder, but the S is a 5 and the E is a 3. Links are all on my YouTube, and then the link to the new channel is on my YouTube as well. That is going to be called More Marauder. But there is nothing up on there at the moment. But if you want to go there and subscribe straight away, that'd be really handy.
Support his channel. We will definitely be reconvening these conversations and maybe even more now that you're making a expanded channel. I know I am starting my kind of channel shift away from Hogwarts Legacy, even though I want to stay in the space. I have to add a little bit more content to kind of stay relevant, and that's what creators have to do. So you and I will definitely reconvene on this. But thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for super chats and all that stuff. This was fun as we just got another super chat from AJ, which we'll answer here before we go. Would you play from start with a different house when DLC does release or continue your first playthrough? I would continue my first playthrough. Just because my other 3 playthroughs are only I think one of them's level 13, one of them's level like, I was trying to see how fast I could complete the game with getting the lowest level. The Slytherin one, I got to, like, level 9 or no, like, level 13, and then, like, level 7, and then I think level 7 or 6. It's about there. If you wanna just, like, fly through the game, you can get there at about level 6 to the map chamber
Wow.
room. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it took under 2 hours to get to the map chamber room with my one playthrough, so, yeah, I would
That's
definitely use my
crazy.
fully kitted out character. What
We
about
have
you?
to do like a speed run challenge. We have to
Mhm.
do a speed run challenge, see how fast you can get through it. That'd be fun. I think I don't know. It depends what the DLC is, really. I still haven't played the Slytherin, so
Mm.
if it is something that benefits from starting again, then I wouldn't mind doing that at all. But if it's something that doesn't really benefit from starting again, it does just move your character and the story forward from wherever you're at, then probably not. There'd be no benefit to
Mhm, mhm.
it.
Yeah, I totally agree. But thank you guys for watching. We'll be back probably next week with another stream. Oh, maybe. We'll talk about that because I think I'm having people over. But either way, thank you guys for coming. See you in the next video.